Hi, I'm Adam from Watford Opinions on Instagram, and the transfer window, both international and domestic, is officially closed. This was a very different feeling transfer window for Watford in comparison to the past few, because when we were in the Premier League, a lot more of the focus was on who was coming in rather than who was leaving. This time, since relegation occurred, it's obviously been the other way around, with there being a lot more focus on the departures rather than the arrivals. But we'll get into all that. We'll start with the departures first, because I guess that's what was more prominent. Then we'll move into the arrivals. And then what could arguably be the biggest victory for Watford during this transfer window isn't about who came in, isn't about who left, but rather the people who have actually stayed that we thought would leave. But we'll get into that. So starting with the departures, the biggest name departure was Abdoulaye Doucouré to Everton. And as we have all seen, Everton have been maybe the best team in the Premier League so far, and Doucouré has been a pivotal part of that. Watford were able to get around £20 million for him, which is a good bit of business. Yes, Everton offered closer to £35 million last summer, but between the financial implications of the coronavirus as well as relegation, getting £20 million for anyone is still a good deal at the end of the day. So Doucouré's moved on to Everton, started off really well there. I think he's going to blossom under Ancelotti's system. The next big name departure we'll go to is Pervis Estupiñán. And we'll pair him with Luis Suarez, actually, because both of them, they taken that picture during preseason together, and fans got excited that they might actually be staying after all, after their impressive campaigns last season. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, they have both left to go play in the first tier in Spain. Suarez has gone to Europa League side Granada, whereas Estupiñán has gone to European contenders Villarreal. And to simply, there's no sugarcoating how Estupiñán was one of the best, if not the best, left back in La Liga last season. Suarez was one of the best players in the Spanish second tier last season with 19 goals and 38 appearances. But at the end of the day, Estupiñán, we sold him for 15 million pounds. Yes, he is worth more than that at face value. But again, the coronavirus and relegation changes everything in terms of transfer value. But more notable is the fact that A, Estupiñán's never played a professional minute for Watford, and we brought him in for nothing. And B, he was going into the last year of his contract, which usually cuts the price of transfers by at least half. So the fact that you're able to get 15 million pounds off of someone who's never played for us is fantastic. And then in terms of Suarez, the deal there is a bit more unclear whether or not there's a sell-on clause in the future, or Granada have paid it all up front, so there's no sell-on clause. But Watford are said to be getting around 8 digits for him as well. So to make at least 25 million off of two players who have never played for us and we brought in for practically nothing is brilliant business by the Poachers at the end of the day. The next transfers we'll focus on is, it's not a Watford transfer window without moves to Udinese. This year, the three players that went to Udinese were Gerard Deulofeu, Ignacio Pusetto, and Roberto Pereira. Roberto Pereira has gone to Udinese on a permanent deal for an undisclosed fee, whereas Deulofeu and Pusetto are both on Udinese for the rest of the season, at least. Deulofeu, he did send a thank you letter to Watford fans, but he was saying stuff like, so far, as of now. So if Watford do get promoted, I do expect to see Deulofeu back at the Vic. Pusetto, his future is a bit more unclear with Watford, whether or not this is just a temporary assignment until they can sell him permanently. But overall, those deals, they make sense. Pereira and Deulofeu, they're not really going to want to play in the championship anyways. The next deal we'll talk about is Cucho Hernandez to Getafe. That was also, I think we did a good job to loan him out in that one, meaning if we do get promoted, he can still be our player. Because especially since we sold Suarez, we wouldn't want to sell Cucho as well, because we have the two strikers out on loan that are seen to be our future strikers. So being able to still have Cucho as a potential option for the future is a good thing to have. If we don't get promoted, then it's going to be likely he's going to be sold on permanently. But even then, we're still going to get a good fee for him. He's playing at one of the better teams in Spain, so his value is only going to rise. He's a very exciting prospect, so hopefully we can see him at the Vic in the upcoming years. Next to be discussed is Craig Dawson's loan to West Ham. There had been rumors where Dawson wanted to move to the Premier League, which is why he didn't feature in the first match of the season, for example. But it also seems like he fell out of favor under Ivic, with Wilmot, Cathcart, and Kabasele being the first three choices, and then William Troost-Ekong coming in, who we'll talk about later, coming in from Udinese. So it really felt like Dawson fell out of favor, and he wasn't going to get much playing time at Watford. And even if he's not starting every match for West Ham, I guess he'd rather be playing somewhat consistent football for a Premier League team than occasional appearances for a Championship team. There's an option to buy on that. Whether that's to be exercised or not remains to be seen. I don't think Watford fans will have too much of a preference either way. It's not going to be heartbreak or anything if he does go, but he definitely did improve over the course of last season. The two players Watford released were Danny Welbeck, who has since joined Brighton, and Daryl Janmaat, who's coming back from a knee injury. He's going to probably find himself in a top flight somewhere in Europe. He's still that quality of a player. But they've been released on a free contract. There was really no place for them at the squad in terms of wages and just where they want the rest of their career to be. Jose Holebas has gone to Olympiacos on a free transfer. He was very good for Watford, long serving for us. He'll always be remembered for his temper. He had, I think, it was 41 cards, 40 yellows, 1 red card, and 114 Premier League appearances, which is quite impressive. And then in terms of other loan deals, less noteworthy loan deals, Pontus Dahlberg has gone to Häcken in Sweden, which I think is a good deal because if both Bachmann and Dahlberg are on Watford, it's going to sort of halt their growth, considering Bachmann will be able to play in the Cups and maybe occasional league matches, but you can't have Foster, Bachmann, and Dahlberg all together. That just wouldn't work, so I think it's a great job to loan him out. Then Adalberto Peñaranda and Jerome Sinclair have headed to Bulgarian giant CSKA Sofia, which seems like a random transfer, but I'm pretty sure the reason this deal happened is because Watford's new sporting director, Cristiano Gioretta, just arrived from Sofia, so that's probably where the link comes from. And then the last transfer of note, if not all the transfers, is youth product Ryan Cassidy, who we extended his contract by a year, so he's on a 2-year deal now, and he's spending this season on loan at League One side Accrington Stanley, where he's actually already scored, and he's played most minutes so far, so it's really good to see him develop. Hopefully he'll come back better than ever, and we'll tie him down to a longer contract. And now, in terms of incomers, we did not spend much. I've heard some people saying, oh, well, this kind of shows a lack of ambition. But at the end of the day, if you threw transfer fees on some of these players, then you'd say, oh, well, look, they've spent some money. But the fact that we didn't need to doesn't mean it's been a bad transfer window. First and foremost, one of the standout players for Watford so far this season, if not the player of the season for Watford after the first 5 matches, is Jeremy Ngakia, coming in on a free contract from West Ham. He's just been amazing all around. Going forward, he's been dangerous defensively. He's been sound, and he is, I'll go out on a limb and say it, one of the best right-back prospects in England. Not the best, but definitely one of the best so far. The next big signing, although only on a season-long loan, is Manchester United midfielder James Garner. He recently won their U23 Player of the Year award, and he's looked class so far. His set pieces are next to none. That's something we haven't seen at Watford since Alman Abdi left 5 seasons ago. And he seems like he can really flourish at Watford and come back and go back to Man United a much better player. And some Man United fans were actually surprised that he was loaned out because they thought he'd be able to play a part in their season. So if that doesn't say anything about Garner's class, I don't know what does. The next big signing Watford had was William Troost-Ekong from Udinese, which I am super pleased about the signing, don't get me wrong. But I was kind of skeptical about the whole rumors at first because William Troost-Ekong was a consistent fixture for them, and he is a top-flight player. Again, he said that one of the reasons he went to Watford is because he feels he can help them get promoted, and then he will be in the top flight, which, with the players Watford have, that's certainly a reasonable thing to aim for. But Troost-Ekong is the captain of one of the best international teams in Africa. He's the Nigerian international team captain. And that's a very respectable team. It's one of the best on the continent. So to have him in the second tier, I think that's a phenomenal piece of business. It kind of puzzled me because I think he's a top flight player, but there will be no complaints about signing him. And if he can help us get to the top flight, then no one's going to call him crazy for going to Watford. And I don't think anyone's going to call him crazy anyways because Watford still are going to be competing for the top most likely. But the fact that he's coming in with ambition, with goals, it's a phenomenal thing to see. And he's a fantastic player to have. The next player that we'll bring up is also from Udinese, as to be expected. Stipe Perica. He's a tall Croatian center forward. He got sent off in the match against Newport, which is why we haven't seen him too much. But from the times he has been on the pitch, he looks like an aerial menace, which is a great thing to see. The next transfer is another forward, Glenn Murray, 37 years old, on loan from Brighton. He has not seemed the best when he's on the pitch, to be honest, and he also came in to be a potential Deeney replacement, but Deeney obviously hasn't left. But we'll see. Murray does have experience in the Championship, and maybe he's just taking time to get the rust off. Then, yes, there is one more transfer from Udinese. Francisco Ciaralta. He's a young Ecuadorian center back. He can also play on the right back position. He doesn't have as much of a resume as most of the other Watford signings, but from a couple appearances he's had in the Cup, he has looked solid, and there is fixture congestion, so you never know who's going to get the odd call-up. And Ciaralta, if he's called upon, I think he can get the job done. Same with the final Watford signing, Toby Stevenson. He joined from Charlton. He was a free agent after Charlton Athletic released him, but he impressed during preseason. Some of his and in the Cup performance as well. So Watford gave him a 1-year contract with a year option to extend. And when he's on the pitch, I think he's been a very big surprise. And his balls into the box are phenomenal, I feel. So he's definitely one to watch for the future, especially considering Watford don't really have many true left backs on their books. With the fixture congestion again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Stevenson making an appearance here and there. We're going to wrap this up soon, but the two things left to talk about are the players who have returned from loan and stayed, and then most importantly, the players who have stayed that were expected to leave. In terms of the players that returned from loan, Ken Sema is one of the big names. He's a super versatile player, can play anywhere on the left side as well as in the center of the midfield. He's been one of Watford's players of the season so far and has turned into something of an assist king with 2 assists so far this season. So he is definitely a player to keep an eye out for because he can be one of Watford's most pivotal players and could be a difference maker in the push for promotion. Another big name that's come back from loan is Ben Wilmot. He spent last season on loan at Swansea until an injury saw him out for the second half of the season. He's played every minute for Watford so far, and he's looked really sound whenever he has. So he's definitely come in and stepped up to really give Watford a chance to compete at the top. The other returnee from loan, which is less notable, but notable nonetheless, is Mark Navarro. He didn't really play much out on loan last season, but he's a solid defender. He can play right back and a bit of left back if Watford needs. And he was looking for a move away, didn't get one, but he's still a good player to have on the books in terms of depth. And then for the main thing, players who we thought would leave but did not. The big name, obviously, is Ismail Assar. Got a lot of interest from Man U and Liverpool. There was some late interest from Crystal Palace. I'd even seen a couple rumors about Dortmund and Aston Villa. But at the end of the day, Watford were able to void off the interest, but a lot has to go to the Pozzos and Ismail Assar himself, because Ismail Assar admitted he wasn't going to agitate for a move away, nor did he, which allowed the Pozzos to set a hard asking price of £45 million and settle for nothing less. So to have Ismail Assar on the books is absolutely phenomenal. He's such a great player. We've seen glimpses of what he can do last season and the Championship. Who knows what the limit is for him. Another big name who everyone thought would leave, including Watford themselves, was Etienne Capoue. He handed in a transfer request, which the club confirmed. The deal that he was going to go on was he was going to go permanently or on loan. That wasn't really decided yet. But nevertheless, he was going to head out to Valencia to meet up with Javi Gracia. But the deal never materialized because Valencia have been really tight with money lately, and they weren't willing to give Gracia the money. So Capoue then rescinded his transfer request since he couldn't meet up with Javi Gracia, and he'll be a Watford player for at least until January. And, well, this will just lead us into our next player, who maybe not as unlikely that he would have stayed in terms of no one really expected him to leave, but it was still a rumor, was Will Hughes. He was linked with Tottenham, but at the end of the day, there was no serious links with him. But to have Capoue and Hughes together, that's just a phenomenal thing to see. And it creates a head-scratcher for Ivic, really, to have Capoue, Hughes, Cleverley, Chalobah, Kina, Garner in the midfield, not to mention Delabashir, who was unfortunately injured for a while. It's going to be a selection head-scratcher because there's so much depth in the midfield positions. And then The last name that has to be said that people thought might leave but did not is club captain Troy Deeney. A lot of fans have had very mixed feelings about Deeney's prospects at the club, but at the end of the day, he has been a brilliant club captain. He's led Watford to promotion once, and who's to say he can again? He'll need some time to get back to fitness, considering he's been doing a lot of training away from the squad in anticipation for a potential move to West Brom was linked. So too was, I think Fenerbahce was briefly linked, but they've been linked with everybody. So too were Spurs. But Deeney, he knows his way around the Championship. He's a solid striker nonetheless. Yes, he scores a lot of penalties, but he's able to score goals that aren't penalties as well. And Deeney, we all know how Deeney can be. Some seasons he's not the best, but other seasons he can show up and be one of the best strikers in the league. So I think Deeney should be given yet another chance by Watford fans because he truly deserves it. And yeah, that just about wraps up the transfer roundup. I also, on the Watford Opinions official website, you can access it through my Instagram page, as well as, I'm pretty sure if you type in Watford Opinions online, it's a WordPress website. Go there. There's also an extensive transfer roundup article there, so please go give that a read and subscribe to the website as well. And yeah, that wraps it up. Thank you.